This is Standing for Truth coming to you live tonight. I've got a very, very special guest with me. I've been looking forward to this all month long, so we're really excited. I know a lot of other people are excited too. I've got Dr. Grady McMurtry here. So I want to thank him for giving us his time. I know he's a very busy man, so I really, really appreciate him. I'm very grateful for that. That being said, I've got Matt Man here. He's going to be in charge of the chat. So starting off, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Grady McMurtry for an introduction, what he's doing now, and just a little bit about his ministry. So go ahead there, Dr. McMurtry.
Well, I'm Dr. Grady McMurtry. I'm with Creation Worldview Ministries at creationworldview.org. My background, though, is that you always have your greatest witness from your greatest change. And I was born and raised as an evolutionist, raised on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley. And I believed evolution. I taught it. I earned my science degrees as an evolutionist. However, at the age of 27, I became a Christian in a search for truth. When I found out the truth is not a concept, the truth is a person. From that point, of course, I had a problem having a personal relationship with the creator of the universe, and yet still having been an evolutionist in the past, again, believing it, teaching it. I taught it from the 7th grade to the university level. So for 16 months, I studied the question, did God use evolution to create what we see around us? Or was what I had learned and taught others wrong, that you really could trust the Bible, that it was all created in 6 literal 24-hour days about 6,000 years ago, exactly as the Bible said, and that it was good science. And so after 16 months of diligent study, having looked at scientific law, having looked at natural process, reevaluating the physical evidence that I knew quite well, but had been taught from an evolutionary viewpoint, I came to the conclusion that there's simply no proof for evolution whatsoever, that evolution is not only a religion, it's a fairy tale for adults. Now, at that point, I became a biblical scientific creationist, and I founded what is called creationworldview.org, Creation Worldview Ministries. And for the last 44 years, I've been traveling the world, domestically and in foreign countries, teaching the truth of creation biblically and scientifically.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that introduction, Dr. McMurtry. Thanks again for joining us. We're really excited. We got a whole list of questions here ranging from creation, evolution, age of the earth, flood geology. So I think it's going to be really engaging and a lot of fun. First question, I think, that is appropriate and probably necessary for an interview like this would be what exactly is evolution, and then what exactly makes evolution a religion? I noticed that you mentioned there that evolution is a religion. So go ahead, Dr. Grady.
When we talk about the definition of the word evolution, it's like talking about the definition of the word science. If you were to take a look at an unabridged English dictionary and look up the many definitions for the word science, you would find pages. Well, with that in mind then, the same thing is also true of evolution. There's a proper use of the word evolution, and there are the improper uses of the word evolution. Now, the simple definition of evolution is change over time, and that's a perfectly valid use of the word, especially when you use it in such ways as to say that if you live in a city as long as I have here in Orlando, which is now going into its 5th decade, I have seen the city evolve over the 5 decades. New buildings, new roads, other buildings that I once saw when I first moved here are now gone. And so in that sense of the word evolution, it's totally appropriate. However, evolutionists then take the word and try to deceive people into thinking that it applies to biology and physical natural systems. So that they say that things supposedly started off as rocks that became alive by random chance, since in their religion there cannot be a God, that all things must happen by random chance with infinite matter, time, mass, and therefore they say that things supposedly get bigger, better, faster, smarter over time. Now, in science, what we see is that the laws of science and the scientific data, observations of living systems as well as physical systems, that things, in fact, are breaking down, that things are actually getting smaller, slower, and dumber over time. Therefore, evolution has to be believed in by faith because the evidence contradicts it. And that's why I say it is a religion. You believe it by faith, it is not scientifically supportable.
I 100% agree with that answer, Dr. Grady. I think it's suitable to go into this next question, though, because you said that things are breaking down. It looks as if we are degenerating. It's almost as if it's devolution and not evolution. Could you expand on that? If you're familiar with, the concept of genetic entropy and how mutations degrade, could you expand on that for the audience, Dr. Grady?
Well, exactly. You were talking about the word de-evolution, and that's a proper, correct term. I love the way the English say the word evolution, because we, of course, don't speak English, we speak American. And I do a lot of work in England, and over that they call it evolution. I kind of like the way that's pronounced. But de-evolution, which is actually things breaking down, again, not getting bigger, better, faster, smarter, but smaller, slower, dumber, is what we actually see. The laws of genetics, for example, are not creative, they're conservative. Consider what occurs in genetics and consider what evolutionists believe. Now, evolutionists believe there's no outside designer, creator, God of any kind whatsoever. Therefore, their God is the God of random chance. And they believe that by random chance, in what's called mutations, that things can get better. But the word mutation, by scientific definition, means that we are actually losing things, not gaining things. A mutation, by scientific definition, is a loss of information in the process of transmitting, information. In fact, what we have with mutations is copying errors. And so the definition of a mutation is a copying error. Now, if I were to say to you that you were the result of 1 billion beneficial mutations, that is to say 1 billion beneficial copying errors, would you buy it? And the answer is no, you would not. Consider what happens in genetics. We copy the previously existing information. We pass it on into the next generation. So we copy mama and papa. We put it into the next generation in new combinations of information, but never new information. And when you copy something, you have only two choices. You can copy it perfectly, in which case there is no change, and therefore there is no mutation. Or we can copy it incorrectly, imperfectly, in which case it always goes downhill. Now, you can point to certain beneficial mutations that we see, though rare, and only beneficial in the sense that it gives a creature some benefit of survival. But what evolutionists don't tell you is that in order to get the benefit which allows them to survive, they actually got worse, not better. That we're breaking mechanisms that used to exist. For instance, in the case of sickle cell anemia, that is a mutation. But it does keep people from getting malaria. I can assure you, however, that anybody who has sickle cell anemia would rather have malaria. Because what happens in the mutation is perfectly healthy blood cells become deformed. And when they get deformed, they can't get through blood vessels, particularly capillaries. And it's very painful, very debilitating. So while there was the benefit of not getting malaria, there was the detriment of a lifetime of great pain and anguish. And therefore, we can say that there's really, I'm putting it in my own terms, there's no such thing as a beneficial mutation over time that increases complexity or intelligence. Now, there are beneficial mutations, as I say, that might prevent malaria, but it's beneficial only in the sense of not getting that one disease, but it actually makes you more vulnerable to others. So I wouldn't call that really beneficial. And the fact of the matter is, when we take a look at mutations, they always and ultimately end up going downhill. This is why I say we have, as you termed it, genetic entropy. Genetic entropy simply says that over time, information is lost, scrambled, destroyed because of mutations. And indeed, we have, from the Human Genome Project completed in 2003, the information that we now know. We are losing 1 to 2% of our genetic information per generation. So, for instance, I love my grandchildren, but they have 2 to 4% less genetic information in their bodies than I do. Likewise, if we go back in time, your great-grandparents were individually more intelligent and had faster reaction times than we do today, and that is established by research that was done in the 18 and early 1900s. So indeed, we are breaking down. All things are breaking down.